everybody, it's Sarah, and today I am back with another review for you. I feel like it's been a while since I uploaded one. I don't know why though. I somehow managed in August to get my reviews. I still need to film down to 2 reviews, and now we're back at like 6 or 7, so I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. But yeah, today's review is a series review, and that review is of the Daevabad Trilogy by S.A. Charkraborty, which consists of the City of Brass, the Kingdom of Copper, and the Empire of Gold. I am sure you've heard of this series before. And as always, this review will be structured with me starting with a little summary of the review and then talking about the negatives that I have on this series, and then ending with the positives. Now, what is this series? This series is an adult high historical fantasy series. It's definitely epic fantasy though. I don't really know if it's categorized as high or not, because it's kind of a little bit along the lines of a portal fantasy, where part of the series is set within our world and part of the series is set kind of not within our world. Also, while this is classified as a high fantasy series, I would say that this is a series that is definitely good to get into for YA readers, because I found the pacing of this series overall to be very much YA. There are some more adult concepts in the series, however, the writing as a whole feels more YA rather than adult, so I would say it kind of, you know, is along the line of on the very much older side of YA or on the very much younger side of adult fantasy. But for that we'd also have to classify when exactly YA ends and when adult starts, so yeah. Anyway, officially this is an adult high fantasy series. Now this series follows Nadi, who lives in Cairo of the 19th century, I believe, and one day she accidentally summons a deva, who is a type of jinn. There's some cultural things there why they're not called jinn, but you know, for easy understanding, he is a jinn. He's called Dada, he's a jinn, and he spirits her away to this magical city called Daevabad, where different clans of jinn live, and Nadi, once arrived there, is kind of caught up within the politics of this place. So now, before I get into the negatives and positives, there are some things that I want to mention first. And that is connected to the discussion of who is allowed to write which stories. I'm not gonna give my commentary on that right now. I have made multiple videos already on cultural appropriation in fantasy and why I think it's a very, very difficult discussion. I will leave both of those videos linked down below and up there. However, while S.A. Charkraborty is Muslim, I do not believe she has Middle Eastern heritage. She looks white. Then again, a lot of Middle Eastern people look very white, so, you know, it's not like you can always tell what someone is or what ethnicity someone belongs to, what heritage someone has by just looking at them. However, on Twitter, which again, Twitter is not the best source for these things, I have seen people say that S.A. Charkraborty is white. Charkraborty is not exactly the most white name. It might be a pen name though, you know, there's many discussions. I just wanted to mention this because I do know that some people just prefer reading books by author that they know kind of, you know, share a heritage with the subject matter of the book. This series is very strongly Middle Eastern influenced. Decide if not knowing whether S.A. Charkraborty is white or not makes you want to read the series or not. That is up to you, truly. And yeah, it's just, as I said, difficult discussion. How do we judge something? What counts as own voices, and so on. But again, S.A. Charkraborty is Muslim, however, so yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of trying to find specific negatives and specific positives of the series, but I have to say I don't have that many. I might say that it's a negative that for a big part of book 1, I wasn't really a fan of Nadi. I found Nadi to be very self-centered, understandably. Like, she was basically swept away, is in this completely new environment, and now is expected to care for other people and for other viewpoints, and everyone is like telling her to her face what she's supposed to think about those different political factions. So it's very understandable why she's very egotistical in certain aspects in the first book. However, it did also make me quite exasperated with her in a lot of the first book. It made a lot of the first book not exactly the most enjoyable experience for me. However, is this really a negative? Not really, because Nadi is a very stubborn and very self-assured main character, which I very much enjoyed. And I very much liked how she develops within the series, you know. So did really appreciate that. Then, I mean, it's both a negative and a positive thing, because as I said, there's very much three main perspectives, not three main perspectives, but three main political factions within the city. And I just was really annoyed within the first book, not just with Nadi, but you know, we got POVs from all different factions in the first book. And I gotta say, I was annoyed with all of them, because I kind of agreed with all of them, which then made me annoyed when another faction, you know, disregarded one faction. It's complicated to explain. It was well written, but not exactly the best reading experience for me, because I was constantly angry at everyone. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Then there were some bits throughout all three books, especially in the last book, which is The Empire of Gold, where I don't know, I just found it started dragging. And especially in the last book, I don't know, I feel like the series lost momentum for me, which, you know, is just not ideal overall, because you want the series to keep going. And I really enjoyed the second book in that way, because the first book very much is exemplified by having these different factions and, you know, those different factions fighting against each other, you being introduced to the different viewpoints, which I did enjoy, and then being annoyed at the different viewpoints. And then the second book deals with, you know, a little bit certain people from the different factions getting closer to each other, finding common ground, and so on. So I really did enjoy the second book. And then the third book was just typical third book fantasy final battle type book, and I just preferred the political stuff way more compared to the pure fighting-y stuff. So didn't really enjoy that. It also didn't help that I absolutely hated and was disgusted with one of the POVs. I will not tell you which POV that was. Well, you probably can guess if you have read the first or the second book. But yeah, I just started skim reading all of their POV chapters because I really hated them. I like really hated them. And it felt like there was a redemption arc tried with that character, but it just didn't work for me. And so yeah, the positive things, although I feel like I've already, you know, thrown my usual structure out of the window with this review, but for the more positive things, I really enjoyed the world building. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was very vibrant. Once again, that's just something that I appreciate so much with so much fantasy that isn't medieval Europe inspired, because medieval European fantasy is just so drab and so grays and browns. But on the other hand, you have this fantasy. You have Middle Eastern inspired fantasy, you have a lot of Asian inspired fantasy, although some Asian inspired fantasy can also be pretty drab. For example, the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. In my mind, that's also just all browns and grays. You have African inspired fantasy. You know, they're also vibrant and colorful, and I don't know how else to describe it, and I just really appreciate that. I really love that. I once again don't even want to talk about which characters I loved, because then you can guess which character I hated, but I really appreciated how S.A. Charkraborty was able to change my opinion on some of the characters, because as I said, within the first book, especially at the beginning of the first book, a lot of the characters are very ideological. And I mean, Nadi never really loses that ideological aspect to her. And the other characters also don't really use it, to just get more realistic. And, you know, I don't like ideological characters. However, the way all of the characters developed and changed and became open to other viewpoints, just, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. Also, there's kind of ish a love triangle within the series, and I won't talk about which of the love interests I'm talking about, but there was one development of a relationship that I really enjoyed and that I really appreciated and that I thought was really well done, because there was a lot of mistrust on both sides at the very beginning. However, they became slowly closer and closer, which I really enjoyed. Again, I just appreciate this a lot. I'm not gonna talk about the Muslim aspects of the story. I mean, there is Muslim representation in here. The main religion within this story, I would say, is Muslim. One of the main characters is Muslim. I said Muslim a lot right now. There's also certain aspects of religious prejudice within these books, but yeah, or prejudice because a person is religious, more like that. So yeah, again, it's an aspect of the books. S.A. Charkraborty herself, as I said, is Muslim, so I'm not going to talk whether or not it's good representation, bad representation, whatever. Anyway, that was my very confusing, I think, review of The City of Brass. It's been quite a while since I finished the series, so right now I'm like, what was my thoughts? What was the series? Maybe I should start making notes right after I finish a series. Am I going to? Probably not. But yeah, leave your comments down below if you're interested in picking up this series or not, or if you have read this series, what your thoughts were on it. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. All the links to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will also be left linked down below. The Discord, the Twitter, everything. Actually, City of Brass was one of the monthly reads in that book club. And with all of that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!